One of the things you do, which is, I mean, you're super famous for it, is this idea of waking up early. Now, I'm not someone that wakes up early.
I know you, no alarm clock, and you're usually up by 11.
So no meetings before 11.
Okay, got it.
I stay up quite late.
Yep.
What's the best case you could give me for changing that? And do I need to change that? Because what I do is, I flew into LA, I'm fucking jet lagged, I'm flying back in a couple of days, I'm going to be jet lagged when I land as well. So what I'm trying to do is just protect my sleep at all costs, because I've come to learn that it's really the foundation of my performance. So if I'm unslept and I show up at work, the chance that I'm not going to show up correctly in a variety of ways, emotionally, creatively, whatever, is high. And that for me is the greatest risk.
Yeah.
So I've in the last sort of year or two of my life, I've just said, okay, prioritize sleep, because then everything else seems to follow. But when I heard that you wake up sometimes at 4:45 or 4:30, like pretty much all the time, and I've literally seen you on social media upload your alarm clock day after day after day, I go, shit, maybe I should rethink.
No, I think if you've got a system that's working well for you, and then I wouldn't change anything, right? If you feel like you're performing well, you're physically healthy, you're getting all the work done that you need to do, you're a naturally more of a late night, late morning type person, I'd run with it. If you were telling me, yeah, sometimes I get up, sometimes I don't, sometimes I work late, sometimes I don't work out every day, sometimes I feel groggy. If you were telling me that kind of thing, I'd say, okay, pick a time and start waking up at that time every day. It doesn't have to be 4:40. It could be 8 o'clock, could be 7 o'clock. It doesn't matter. Could be 11 o'clock. But try and go to bed around the same time and try and wake up around the same time. And that's going to be a great foundation for everything that you're doing. And I would say when you wake up in the morning, do some kind of exercise, because I think that is very helpful in getting your day started correctly.
What are your non-negotiables in your life in terms of habits, routines, disciplines?
I wake up early and I work out every day. That's kind of my those are the minimum requirements in my life. Train jiu-jitsu. I don't get to train jiu-jitsu every single day, but if I can train jiu-jitsu, I'm going to train jiu-jitsu. I'm going to work out every day. If I can surf, I'm going to surf. I obviously have to work every day. I work every day doing something. I've got a bunch of different companies. I got to write books, podcasts. So I work every day.
Are you ever undisciplined?
Oh, yeah. Chocolate chip cookies. Yep. they're a discipline lapse for me. So I'm not a cyborg.
When people look at someone like you that's, done all the things you've done, you've been a SEAL and you've written all these books and started these companies, and actually the drink I'm drinking now is one of your products, which is what's that in front of you?
It's an energy drink called Go.
Called Go. Delicious, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I think my mouth has been connected to my brain during this interview, so I think it's working. I understand there's misconceptions that people have of me, because they assume, it's kind of like the halo effect. We assume because someone's done something well, they do all things well. But there are so many things that I think would really liberate people and make them inspired if they could see how deficient I was in so many things in my life. Because they just assume that if you've done one thing well, you have a good podcast, you must be like, the perfect picture of what are the big misconceptions generally, moving away from this idea of imperfection, but just generally about Jocko, because you realize you've become a bit of a character, right? Like Navy SEAL, that comes with an identity package.
Yeah, I think the biggest misconception, and it's not just me, but it's really the military in general, is the misconception of this kind of authoritarian and even authoritarian dictatorship from a leadership perspective. And even when we were having this conversation, I said, I'm going to let my subordinates plan. And you kind of had a stunned look on your face, like, what are you talking about? Why would you let your subordinates plan? And so there's an idea and a misconception that the leader is going to stand up and bark all the orders. So that's one misconception. Another one is I look like a Neanderthal, and so people think I'm going to scream and yell at everybody, and I never yell at anybody. My business partner Leif Babin, who's worked with me, who's in my task unit at SEAL Team 3 and deployed to Ramadi with me. And we've written a couple books together. We have a business together. And he was like my direct subordinate in Ramadi and during a workup. And, like I've never yelled at him. And he likes to point out that he gave me plenty of reasons to yell at him, but never yelled at him because what good is that? And by the way, if I have to yell at somebody, what does that say? That means if I have to yell at you to get my point across as a leader, I've made like 47 other mistakes. My goal is that I don't even have to say anything. That's my goal as a leader. My goal is I don't have to say a word, and you already know what to do, and you make it happen. And I look at you and give you a thumbs up and say, good job. That's my goal. So I think the biggest misconception is the idea of someone in the military or myself being a authoritarian leader, being very closed-minded. Like, I got asked a question the other day about, if China attacked Taiwan and you were taking troops in there, what would you be focused on? And I said, I'd be focused on keeping an open mind. Because if you have a closed mind about what the mission is, about how it's going to happen, about what your troops are going to do, about what the enemy's going to do, if you have a closed mind about those things, you're going to get caught off guard. You have to have an open mind. You have to be accepting of the information that you're receiving. You have to be accepting of the other ideas that other people have. And if you have a closed mind, you're going to fall apart.
Kind of counterintuitive in some ways, because the reason people often think they've been made the leader because they have loads of the correct ideas. So I think as people often climb in life, they go, well, I've been right so much that they've put me here as CEO. So now I need to defend my righteousness at all costs, even when I'm not, sure, because that's a weakness.
Yeah. And you quoted Steve Jobs earlier, and I think actually it's from your book, which was, I don't hire people so I can tell them what to do. I hire good people so they can tell me what to do. So, yes. In a leadership position, you should be listening more than you should be talking.
You were talking a second ago about shouting and aggression. Mm. It made me, as you're saying it, I was thinking, there is a stereotype that a man is aggressive and he shouts and all those things. There's a bit of a stereotype there. What I was actually thinking is, it's never been so unclear what a man is than in 2024, in the context of how a man's meant to show up. Are they meant to be masculine or feminine or somewhere in between or whatever? And for many men, you are a man's man. When we think of Navy SEALs, we go, men. Do you know what I mean? So I was wondering, because it's never been as clear, I think, what a man should be. When you're raising a kid, that's a man, or when you're being a man yourself, what do you think a man should be? And I want to give a bit more context here. There's a lot of men struggling right now. There's a lot of men, if I talk about it a lot, that if you look at the stats around suicidality in the UK, the thing that's most likely to kill someone between the age of 18 and 40 is themselves, for a man. So men are clearly struggling in some capacity with purpose or meaning or something. So I almost feel like, a lot of these sort of toxic influences of what a man should be have now emerged to offer answers. But I doubt those toxic influences. And I say there's got to be another role model, another sort of blueprint for what it is to show up as a man.
Well, I was going to give you I guess it would have been a real cheap answer of, I think it's Marcus Aurelius, is stop discussing what it is to be a man and be one. I was going to walk out of here with that one. I'd be like, pretty good question avoidance there. But there's some merit to that, right? And I was almost thinking, do we really not know? Do we really not know what it is to be a good man? And I would go so far as to say to be a good human being, right? Because when a few years ago there was these discussions going around about toxic masculinity, right? And you take these traditional masculine traits, and people were saying this is toxic masculinity, and they're bad. And I wrote a couple articles about it. If you take any trait of a human being and you take it to an extreme, masculine or feminine or otherwise, you take it to an extreme, it's going to be a problem. It doesn't matter what it is. So if you take even a really positive trait like generosity, if you're a super generous person, that's wonderful. Is it possible to be too generous? Well, yes, it is. Now you're getting taken advantage of, and now you end up in an abusive relationship. Like there's all kinds of problems that can happen. So when we talk about masculine traits and what's a man, well, what are some of the traditional masculine traits? To be competitive. Now, is it bad to be hyper competitive where you screw people over and you hurt your health because you want to win in this particular category? Is that bad? Yes, it is. Does that mean we have people that are not competitive at all and they don't care if they win or lose? No, that's not good either. So that's one trait. What's another good aggression? Aggression is a masculine trait. Is it good if I'm walking into a restaurant pushing the hostess out of my way? Of course, that's terrible. It's terrible. Is it good if you and I are working together and I say, hey, shut up and do what I said? Is that good? No, it's not good. So can you take aggression too far? Yes, you absolutely can. Can you get to a point where you're not even asserting yourself at all and you're getting what? Yes, you can. Is that good? No, that's not good either. So there's a bunch of traits that we could run through that are considered traditional masculine traits. And if you take any of those traits and you take them to an extreme, they're going to be bad. Stoicism, right? Being stoic, being unemotional. Is it good to have no emotions whatsoever? No, that's called a sociopath, right? Is that good? No. Is it good, like I was talking about earlier, to let your emotions run your life and make your decisions based on your emotions? No, that's not good either. What do we want to be as a human, as a man? I want to be balanced. I want to be balanced. You don't want to be extreme in any direction. Even when you ask me like, oh, Jocko, what are you undisciplined on? I told you chocolate chip cookies. I could have also said, yeah, sometimes I like to eat mint chocolate chip milkshakes. Sometimes I get lazy to work out. I'm like, you know what? I freaking warmed up and this sucks and I'm leaving. Sometimes I was going to write something and now I didn't write anything. I was supposed to write 1,000 words today. I didn't write any. And guess what? I didn't write any tomorrow. And so I'm a slacker. So if I was so disciplined that, my wife was like, hey, I'd like to go out for dinner. I was like, no, I still got to write my 1,000 words. Is that good? No, it's not good. So any characteristic, if we take it to extreme, it's going to be a problem. And so we as people should be balanced. And I think what we need to be attuned to is it's much easier to be extreme. It's much easier to be extreme. It's much easier to say, oh, no emotions, cool, and turn them off. That's easier than, or total emotion mayhem, that's easier. It's harder to find balance. It's harder to find balance in business. It's harder to find balance in life. It's hard to find balance. And what we have to do is we have to be attuned to the feedback that we're getting. We have to be attuned to the feedback that we're getting. So if we're talking to our wife and she says, you're not going to be home for dinner again tonight for the 9th night in a row that you're going to stay late at work. Okay. You need to be paying attention enough to say, oh yeah, guess what? I'm a little too focused on work right now. And then the other end of that spectrum is my boss says, hey, Jocko, wait, you're leaving early again? Well, it's wrestling season. My daughter's got a wrestling match, so I'm going to leave. Okay, I need to be attuned enough to say, yeah, if I focus 100% on my job, I'm going to lose my family. If I focus 100% on my family, I'm going to lose my job. We as humans are supposed to be balanced. And by the way, there's going to be some things that we don't control. Somebody asked me the other day, what did I learn about myself from the highs and lows of my life? The highest point of my life and the lowest point of my life. What did I learn about myself? And I said, I learned that I don't let the highs and the lows affect me too much. Because we're going to have wins, we're going to have losses. We're going to have successes, we're going to have failures. We're going to have good nights, we're going to have bad nights. We're going to have good relationships, we're going to have bad relationships. We're going to have good ideas and bad ideas. We're going to make money, we're going to lose money. All these things are going to happen. And if you oscillate emotionally up and down drastically, it's going to be problematic. So finding a good, stable, centered way to be and look at the world and take everything that you see with a little bit of a grain of salt and don't get swayed too drastically in one direction or the other, you're going to be okay. And if I was to try and sum up some of this idea about being a man or being a good human, it's like those books. I wrote a book called Extreme Ownership. That, number one, take responsibility for what you're doing. Take ownership of your world. Take ownership of your life. There's number one. Number two, the second book, Dichotomy of Leadership. Be balanced. Be balanced. Don't be extreme. Extreme. Look, do you have to sometimes get out there in the fringes a little bit? Occasionally, you probably had some business situations where you're like, all right, I got to let go half of my staff right now. That's an extreme move, but that's how we're going to start. Do you have to do that sometimes? Yes, you do. But don't let that be where you live. Live in the center. Live in a stable area. And then finally, discipline equals freedom.
A couple of words you use throughout this conversation make me want to add some things to that list of what it takes to be a, maybe not a good man, but at least a happy and fulfilled man. One of the words you used is brotherhood. And I was thinking about all the things you got from your time in the SEALs. And it's almost a bit of like a microcosm of what I think a lot of men are looking for. You know, that sense of purpose, that brotherhood. And they find it these days in like video games and stuff, right? Video games, I've got no, I cast no judgment on people that play video games. I've played video games my whole life. But it seems like there's a reason we're getting like increasingly addicted to these video games, because they're giving us something that we're searching for in real life and not getting. You use the words brotherhood, purpose. These are things that the SEALs clearly have in huge amounts. Is there anything else that you'd add to that list of what it takes to feel fulfilled?
Yeah, jiu-jitsu. It almost has become a joke amongst me, my friends, people that listen to me, is you got some kind of a problem in the world, you got some kind of problem in your life, go train jiu-jitsu. There's a reason why I say that. Because the things that you just mentioned, discipline. Guess what you need to go train jiu-jitsu when you're tired and you don't feel like it? Discipline. Guess how you feel when you're done? You feel awesome. You get a bunch of dopamine. Guess who you're there with? A bunch of dudes that you can relate to. And guess what you're going to do together? You're going to struggle. You're going to go through some hardship together. You're going to sweat. You're going to choke. You're going to get your arm broken. Like, these things are going to happen. Not going to get your arm broken, but you may. But you're going to be with a little brotherhood. And by the way, women train jiu-jitsu too. My daughters all train jiu-jitsu. It's all good. It's all good. So yeah, jiu-jitsu is one way. Now look, could you go to the rock climbing gym? Yes, you could. Could you go to the CrossFit gym? Yes, you could. Could you go to the
soccer?
Yeah, the soccer field, football field, whatever. Yeah, you can do that stuff. So yeah, go do that stuff. Go do that stuff. That's shared suffering together with a group on a regular basis, whether you want to or not. Those are all little components of being in the military or being in the SEAL teams. That's what it is. That's what you're doing. What does a SEAL platoon do? They train to get ready for go to war. How do they do that? They go to the desert. They carry their guns. They run through little choreographed moves. They get hot. They carry weight. It's suffering. It's just shared suffering, and they're working together. And they're learning skills. That's what you're doing in a jiu-jitsu gym. That's what you're doing on the soccer field. So go out and do those things with other human beings, and it's going to make things better for sure.
It made me think of business as well.
Business should be that way. If you're in an organization, you're doing the exact same thing, right? We've got a problem. We need to solve it. We've got to allocate resources. We've got to come in late tonight. We got to make this thing happen. We got an emergency. Like, that's what a business is too. That's the way it should be. It should be we're working together to solve problems. And when we're successful, we get rewarded for that. So yes, this is called human interaction. I'm sorry that it looks like war is the best way to do it. It's not. I would much rather people start a business and create a product and create jobs. I would much rather people do that. And you can find that same kind of camaraderie in business. In fact, it's interesting, I have a consulting business, and so we work with companies, and companies that went through the 2008 economic downfall, they're so bonded because they went through this traumatic experience together. Companies that kind of did well out of the gate, they're not, people are leaving and people are coming. But companies that went through some trauma together, they stick together. So Yeah, if you frame things right in your life, if you frame a business challenge as an opportunity to build a stronger team, if you frame a personal challenge as an opportunity to overcome and improve yourself, these things that seem so horrible are actually very positive components of your existence, and they're going to make you better.
If you love the Diary of a CEO brand and you watch this channel, please do me a huge favor. Become part of the 15% of the viewers on this channel that have hit the subscribe button. It helps us tremendously, and the bigger the channel gets, the bigger the guests.